Yes, you guys, and how are you all doing today? I'm Nini FC, this is Blue Lines TV, and welcome to a 5 talking points video after an emphatic 5-3 win against RB Salzburg. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about Ross the Boss Barkley and how he's been able to transform himself at this club. I'll be talking about how he defended the set piece against the goal we conceded. I'm going to break down and analyse PEDRO'S fantastic world-class goal. And also, I'm going to be mentioning Tammy Abraham and Pulisic, and when it comes to both players, how effective they are together, and how Tammy Abraham needs patience from this fan base. Now, before I get into anything, today's video is brought to you by the OneFootball app. Download the OneFootball app to stay up to date to everything happening this pre-season. The season's coming up soon. The news is coming out very fast. I'm not always able to catch up on it, so if you guys want to get the latest on loan players that have left, I suggest you download the OneFootball app. Now, starting with the first point, we need to talk about Ross Barkley and how he's been able to transform his spell under Frank Lampard. Now, it's quite obvious. The immediate answer is Lampard is using Ross Barkley as a number 10. That's always been Ross Barkley's best position. I've said this time and time again. Back at Everton, he was playing in the number 10 role, playing close to Lukaku. And you realise that Ross Barkley's always been used in this position, it makes a lot of sense as to why he's become accustomed to playing in space. Now, under Sarri last season, we have to understand that Sarri was forced to use Ross Barkley as a number 8 because he didn't have any options. The club signed him a cover, and he already inherited Ross Barkley, and it's no surprise why these guys didn't perform. I mean, we know that cover makes sense playing deeper in midfield, and Ross Barkley's always been a number 10 playing with freedom. Now, I don't blame Sarri for this, because when you sign a manager of his dimensions, you're signing him for his philosophy. It's as simple as that. You're not signing him to adapt. Adaptability would naturally come once Sarri became 100% confident that the team understood his methods. And it was no surprise why guys like Cover and Ross Barkley didn't perform as well last season. Since then, Lampard took over, and one fortunate thing that Lampard had was the fact that he inherited so many great players from the loan army, and these loan army players in particular really suited Lampard's tactical needs. Lampard realised very early on that he doesn't have Ruben and he doesn't have wingers, so it makes sense to focus on formations that get the best out of the available players right now, and because of that, the 4-2-3-1 and the 4-1-2-1-2 were the go-to formations. And because of these formations and the system in place from Frank Lampard, this has helped Barkley profit a lot. Now, some may say that Sarri stifled him last season. I don't think so. We saw Ruben profit playing as a number 8, and that's because Ruben naturally is a box-to-box midfield player. If you got Ruben to play as a number 10, he wouldn't perform as well because that isn't his game. And one thing I love about Frank Lampard is that he understands how to get the best out of players, and he uses players in their best position. Because of how Lampard is using him, Barkley is able to play in space again. That's all Barkley's ever needed. And Lampard's helped create space for Ross Barkley through a combination of quick movement of the ball and runs in behind. Now, because of this, all Ross Barkley has to do is focus on finding the right spaces to attack. And playing this way does give Ross Barkley that extra split second which he really needs. Now, because Barkley does have this extra second of space, it means that he now has the opportunity and time to showcase his great passing ability. And this is where the genius of Frank Lampard comes into play, because he's realised that to get the best out of Barkley, if you need to rely upon him, is obviously to use a counter-attacking style. The runners in front of Barkley make a world of difference, and because Barkley has more space, he can now find his man with his passing. Now, you guys, I'm an upfront guy. You know that I have critiqued Barkley a lot, and for me, it was very deserved. However, I am fair, and I have spoken about the context in regards to why Barkley was so poor. I mentioned things like him being injured and effectively being out for a year. I mentioned the fact that he is playing in a new role, and I mentioned the fact that he does suit playing closer towards a striker and playing in space. However, I've never really delved into Barkley playing as a number 10 or Barkley being a number 10 as a real option because I assumed we would never use a number 10 again. With Frank Lampard arriving, He has taught me that I need to be a bit more acute when it comes to judging players. When you see that he's a manager that adapts to situations, this is naturally going to allow for a lot more creative use of players. Now, Lampard may feel that this formation is the best to use for now until Ruben and co return, but in the meantime, Lampard has found the best solution for the team. It's getting the best out of guys like Ross Barkley, and the more players performing, the more players on fire, the better it's going to be for our season. Now, moving on to the second point, and I do want to analyse Pedro's beautiful, world-class goal last night against Salzburg. Now, as you guys can see here, we are down the left-hand side, and it was particularly down this left-hand side where we caused Salzburg all types of issues. Now, again, we've closed them down in their own half. There's no short passing option for the Salzburg player. And as you guys can see, he hesitates a bit, and Barkley wins the ball. Now, already, Tammy dropped deeper, and it's quite obvious now that they're looking to do a 1-2. But it's what Tammy does, but I find it very interesting. Now, Barkley releases it to Tammy, and as we can see, Tammy has already been looking up. Now, sorry, let me just go back there a tiny bit again. Now, look at this small flick of the head from Tammy. That's how he was able to see where Pedro's run was. Now, what Tammy does, which is very intelligent, is he carries the ball a tiny bit. He doesn't release the ball back super early to Ross Barkley because he's seen that Pedro is on the far right side. And of course, it makes sense to slow the play down a bit so Pedro is able to, obviously run in behind. As we can see, Tammy now passes it to Barkley. And this is what I like about Tammy's run. Now, with most strikers, you'd assume that they'd make runs going towards the goal, trying to lose their man. But instead, once Tammy does release the pass back to Barkley, he holds his position. And by holding his position, look how many men he takes out the game. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And because of this allows Pedro the space and the movement to run in behind. And we saw one of the best goals last night. Now, I do want to put praise on Ross Barkley's pass. I really, really want to praise his pass because without that pass, the goal doesn't come. It's as simple as that. As we can see with Ross, cuts inside, in-swinging cross, and wow. The weight on that pass, it was perfect. The weight was so perfect, in fact, that all Pedro had to do was cushion the ball in the back of the net. He didn't have to even change his strides. Pedro kept the same momentum because the weight of that pass was just so perfect that all he had to do was just cushion it and direct it towards goal. And as we can see here, exceptional improvisation, amazing world-class goal, and fully deserved. I mean, what a goal this was. I've been watching this non-stop all day, and I've had a lot of fun analysing this type of goal. Now, as you guys can see, we concede another set-piece goal, a set-piece aimed towards the near post, and we conceded because we're using a zonal style marking system. Now, it's not the first time we've done this. We did the same thing under Sarri last season, and the main reason as to why we do use a zonal defending style is because man for man, we can't physically compete with most teams. We don't have enough physical players in the team. The only guys we had last night were Tammy, Luiz, and Zuma. Now, as you guys can see here immediately, we see that Zuma and Tammy are in the central areas. Luiz is near the near post. And obviously, we're using a zonal system. Already, Zuma has lost his man. His man is behind him. And this means that Tammy is now sandwiched between two Salzburg players. So what's he really going to be able to do to help defend? Nothing really. And effectively, he's been taken out of the game. Seeing it in real time. And as you can see, Luiz marking the near post, which was his responsibility. He is standing flat-footed, meaning that momentum was on the side of the Salzburg player. And there's nothing really Luiz could have done. Maybe if people let him know that he had a market behind him, but in such a short amount of time, I think it was pretty impossible to communicate that to David Luiz. Honestly, the mistake for the goal came from Zuma not keeping his man tight, which then allowed Tammy to become outman 2v1. And because of that confusion in which Tammy was in, this gave the advantage to the Salzburg player to make a run in behind David Luiz and get on top of him. And for me, when I saw that goal before, I did blame David Luiz, but again, I do like to watch games twice because you do notice other parts of the game you don't normally see. And the simple conclusion to this is that the team needs more game time. The team needs more work in the training grounds, as currently these guys seem really confused when it comes to who they need to pick up when it comes to zonal defending. Now, moving on to the next point, and I feel as if we need to understand Tammy Abraham a bit better. Now, I understand that with the fan base currently, there's some reservations surrounding the player. A lot of people feel as if Tammy isn't going to be the answer that we need. They don't feel confident in his finishing ability. And for this segment, I want you guys to see Tammy Abraham from a different perspective. Now, I was touching upon his abilities in yesterday's game, and one thing I was mentioning is that his movement off the ball is elite. And with this movement, in Frank Lampard's current team setup, he needs his strikers to make those sacrificial runs that's going to help the midfield runners. Now, if Tammy was static, if he was calling for the ball and not making runs in behind or out wide, do you really think we'd be as fluid with Barkley and Pulisic? Of course not. Abraham won't get too much credit. However, he complements the team. And as I keep saying, if a striker isn't going to score, the other thing that he needs to make sure he does is work hard and complement the team. Now, I'm going to show some examples of Tammy Abraham and his great movement against Salzburg last night. Starting with the first one, as we can see, he's outside on the far right, just on the outside of the defender. And for me, this is the perfect opportunity for an Emerson to play a dink pass over the top for Abraham to try and get something. Abraham's run is so good that he takes out two defenders again, giving us a possible cutback option in case Emerson felt like doing that. However, seeing it in real time again, it's the wrong option. And look at Abraham's reaction. He's about to get annoyed, and for me, it's a prime example of the team needing to understand how Abraham plays to get the very best out of him. Another example, as we can see, Tammy moves in between two defenders. By doing that, it freed up space for Pedro. Let's see that again. Let me slow it down. As we can see, Tammy on the outside of the last defender. He notices this, and he probably hears Pedro calling him from behind. So Tammy moves between the defense, freeing up space out wide for Pedro. And you can see that Barkley now is making the run in field. I could see what Pedro was trying to do. He was unlucky that it never pulled off. But this is an example of the type of opportunities we can now fashion now that we have a very selfless runner up front. Now, I'm going to be talking about Christian Pulisic now. So in that sense, both points do combine, so you guys pay attention. I'm going to show you the first goal that Pulisic scored. And as you can see in real time, great pass by Pedro. The movement by Tammy again. Great finish, bottom left corner by Christian Pulisic. Now, Tammy Abraham does play another part to this goal. He helps take out defenders away, allowing Pulisic to get in behind. And I want to say great first touch, good close control, and composed finish at the ends. Now, here's a better angle of the goal. As we can see, Tammy is in between the fullback and the defender, and it's the same thing for Christian Pulisic. And Sarri did say something very important last season. When he was talking about the squads, he mentioned the fact that not enough players like playing without the ball. A lot of times players were attracted to the ball, and because of this, it made things very congested and very compact. Now, of course, this issue was exemplified even further because we had guys like Barkley and Cover playing as number 8s, and that didn't really suit their position. So a lot of times, we couldn't create these opportunities because we didn't have the players with those instincts. But this is why I keep praising Tammy, because when you have someone that's willing to move every single time, you start to create opportunities like this. Great goal. I mean, it's a great goal. Trademark Frank Lampard goal. I expect us to score a lot of goals like this. This type of goal reminds me of watching the academy. It's a similar type of move that they would do. And it's just great to see. Now, moving on to the next talking point, I want to talk about the American boy wonder himself, Christian Pulisic. And this point's going to follow on very nicely from the previous point on Tammy Abraham. Now, moving on to the second goal scored by Pulisic, and this was another fast, accurate counter-attack. Now, as we can see here, Barkley with time and space, and I'm going to keep saying this about the guy every single time. He's the type of player that needs that space operating. But I do want to say credit to Barkley again for another world-class pass, and as you guys can see, I mean, look at that. Perfect control by Pulisic, controlling it off his face, composed finish as well, and it's a great goal. It is a fantastic team goal. Great play by Pulisic, those infield runs by him are looking very dangerous. I mean, with his pace, his close control, and the composed finishing. I'm showing these goals to really emphasize the importance of having players that like to make runs and behinds. Because if that isn't in the player's DNA, you don't fashion these types of opportunities. And on that note, you guys, I'm going to keep things moving. Thank you for watching. I'm NiniFC. This is Blue Lines TV. See you guys later.